The lira is up after a brutal beating over the past few days. First time it's been up in about a week. Lost 5% yesterday, more than 5%. Lost 14% on Friday. But today is seen as a technical move because President Erdogan came out this morning not backing down, actually stepping up his fight with the United States, urging Turks to boycott Apple and other U.S. technology companies, basically until either the U.S. pastor is released back home or Turkey's central bank moves to raise interest rates and acts more urgently to contain this crisis. There's no real relief seen in sight. Those are the two flashpoints, decisions that the president of Turkey could make to alleviate some of the pain. And it's not just localized. We've been watching the contagion, especially in vulnerable emerging markets like China, South Africa, and Russia. All are seeing relief against the dollar. That's the dollar weakening against those currencies today. Also watch the Mexican peso. It's sort of a proxy for emerging markets. Could indicate some indiscriminate selling if things get a lot worse and the peso gets dragged in. But I will show you overnight the Indian rupee hit a record low because the spotlight is on countries with trade and current account deficits, and both of those numbers are rising in India. So there's vulnerability. The upshot here, as far as contagion factor goes, it shows the potential of this Turkish crisis to spread pain. So far, it's not a real emerging markets crisis, and you're not seeing anything severe in terms of stress to the system and other places. But until Turkey moves to address the currency's free fall and President Erdogan backs off of this, it's your fault, the U.S., we don't have any crisis, everybody's vulnerable and the crisis could get worse. So what we're seeing is a technical bounce.
The next stage in this is wave of defaults in Turkey, right? This goes from a currency crisis to a debt crisis. And that's where you start to, I mean, now you could say second order consequences. Maybe there are hedge funds on the wrong side of the trade. Sure. There are people in EM. We see the EM stocks falling off. You start to see a wave of defaults, which looks like they're going to come because he's not doing anything to improve the currency.
That's why currency crises are so dangerous and they have economic impacts. Because what happens is a country's currency devalues, it loses a chunk. The Turkish lira is down more than 40%, even with today's bounce for the year. And all of those foreign loans, those Turkish companies have been binging on foreign debt, and the wave of easy money get a lot more expensive to service, and they can't pay them off. And that's where you're talking about the defaults.
If Turkey were to, and we talked about this yesterday, and you had said that everyone always hates the IMF until they need the IMF. Mm-hmm. If Turkey had to call Christine Lagarde and say, look, we need your help, what would she require?
One of the big problems with that is, first of all, Erdogan doesn't look anywhere near calling in help for a bailout. It would be extremely embarrassing, given some of his rhetoric, which he says the fundamentals are strong, we're just having a speculative attack. He's blaming social media. So that would be embarrassing. The second part of that problem is the U.S. is the largest shareholder in the IMF. We contribute the most money. So if this is a diplomatic fight between the U.S. and Turkey, that's not going to be so hot for the IMF to just swoop in and fix
the conditions
everything.
Will be very, very tough under any circumstances.
Right. But that is how Argentina ring-fenced it. And then they've been raising rates and they've been trying to combat this. But yes, they'll have to take some hard medicine.